Hey guys, MTG Decks for Fun here, and today we're going to talk about my Derevi Empyrial Tactician EDH deck, or Commander deck if you're newer to the game. So, Derevi is a 2/3 for a blue, a white, and a green. She's a legendary creature bird wizard with flying. Whenever Derevi enters a battlefield or a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may tap or untap target permanent. So, for another ability she has is a blue, a white, and a green, and a colorless. You can put Derevi into the battlefield from the command zone. So, essentially, if you pay one more than her original starting mana cost, you can flash her in anytime you want, and no matter how many times she dies, you get to play her for 4. And then when she comes in, she taps something down or untaps something. So, you control people with pretending like you don't have enough mana for a counterspell, and you can flash her in and untap the land and have enough mana for a counterspell, or you can tap down one of their attacking creatures. Oh, and if you're wondering why the angle in my video is a little bit different, it's because I got a tripod, a new tripod I should say, and a new microphone, which hopefully sounds better. I think it does. And I'm going to try something a little bit different. I'm going to try an angle that's a little bit different so that, hold on a second. Try an angle that's a little bit different so that you can see the cards better. So for basic lands, we have 3 forests, six plains, and 4 islands. So those are all the basic lands we have. And now this next land is something that's really, really special. This next land is the reason why I built the deck in the first place. And that is Seaside Haven. So Seaside Haven came out in Onslaught. So you tapped out a colorless mana, which doesn't seem that good, but you can pay a white and a blue and tap it to sacrifice a bird and draw a card. And I also got it foil in a pack I opened from Onslaught a long time ago. So I figured, why not? Everybody sees me pull out Derevi, and they're just like, why? So, Colorless Lands, we've got Crow's and Verge, which lets you search for a forest and a plains card, put them into play, shuffle your library, it comes into play tapped, you can add a colorless. And then you have Alchemist Refuge, which you may cast non-land cards as though they had flash, and you pay a blue and a green to use it, and taps right at colorless. And our last colorless land is Blighted Woodland. It's a new one from Battle for Zendikar. You tap, add a colorless to your mana pool, or you can pay a green and 3 colorless, tap it, sacrifice it, and search for up to 2 basic lands and put them in the battlefield tapped. Then you shuffle your library. So it's basically like an explorer on explosive vegetation on a land. Then we have the good old Command Tower. We have Reflecting Pool. And then we have the 3 pain lands. We have Brush Lands, Adakar Wastes, and Yavimai Coast. Then we have the 3 Scry lands, Temple of Plenty, Temple of Enlightenment, and Temple of Mystery. And then we have the, I don't really know what these are called, but they're the like core set lands and the Innistrad lands. So we have Sun Petal Grove, Hinterland Harbor, and Glacial Fortress. And then we have the Shock lands, which is Temple Garden, Breeding Pool. I don't have a Hollowed Fountain in this deck, but I do have one in my Brea deck. And then we have the Battle for Zendikar lands, Canopy Vista, and Prairie Stream. And then we have one land from Amonkhet, which is Scattered Grove, because I needed a little bit more green-white, and the cycling's nice when I don't need it late game. And then Flooded Grove, again from blue and green. So those are the lands. And now we'll move on to the spells. So for the first set of spells we're going to look at, we have Plasm Capture, which is a mana drain that costs 2 more, basically. Counterspell, which is just counters a spell. Void Shatter, which counters a spell, and if it was countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into his opponent's graveyard. Then Dissipate, which does the exact same thing as Void Shatter, except it's not a colorless spell. Then we have Fairy Trickery, counter a non-fairy spell, and then remove it from the game. So those are our counter spells. Then we move on to our removals. So we have good old Path to Exile, which exiles a creature and its controller may search his or her library for a basic land and put it in the battlefield tapped, then shuffle his or her library. And then we have Swords to Plowshares, which is remove a creature from the game or exile them, and that creature's controller gains life equal to its power. And then we have Artifact Removal, which is Return to Dust, and Crows and Grip. So Return to Dust is remove target artifact or enchantment from the game, and if you played the spell during your main phase, you may remove up to one other target artifact or enchantment from the game. And then we have Crows and Grip, which has Split Second, which means as long as the spell is on the stack, which means as soon as you cast it, players can't cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. And it's destroy a target artifact or enchantment. This is one of the only spells that can actually get rid of a top, because you play this and they can't activate the ability and it just gets destroyed. And then we have Beast Within, which isn't necessarily artifact or enchantment hate, but most of the time it is, which it destroys a permanent, and you put a 3/3 green beast token into the battlefield. And then we move on to the only mass bounce spell in the deck, which is Cyclonic Rift. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand, and then you can pay Overload for a blue and 6 colorless. You may cast this spell for its Overload cost. If you do, change its text by replacing all instances of target with each. So it would be return each non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. Then we have the good old board wipes. So we have Supreme Verdict, it can't be countered, destroy all creatures. Wrath of God, destroy all creatures, they can't be regenerated. Rout, you may cast Rout anytime you cast an instant if you pay 2 more. So for 7, you destroy all creatures, they can't be regenerated at instant speed. Then we have Fated Retribution, which is destroy all creatures and planeswalkers. If it's your turn, you scry 2. So those are all the board wipes. So we're a little lacking in the ramp department, but it hasn't really been a problem for me. So the 2 ramp spells we have are Farseek and Cultivate. So Farseek says, search your library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain card and put it into the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So I chose that over a lot of things because I have a lot of lands that have the subtext in them, like forest, island, plains, you know. And then Cultivate is search your library for 2 basic lands, reveal them, put 1 into the battlefield tapped, and the other into your hand, then shuffle your library. So now we have our token spells. We have Flurry of Wings, which is put X 1/1 white bird soldier creatures into the battlefield with flying, where X is the number of attacking creatures. Migratory Route, which is create 4 1/1 bird, 1/1 white bird creature tokens with flying. And then we have Beck and Call. Beck is whenever a creature enters the battlefield this turn, you may draw a card. And then Call is put 4 1/1 white bird creature tokens with flying into the battlefield. Okay, and then we move on to our enchantments. We have Aura Shards, which is destroy an artifact or enchantment whenever a creature comes into play. Soulcatcher's Airy, whenever a bird is put into the graveyard from play, put a feather counter on Soulcatcher's Airy. All birds get +1/+1 for each other feather counter on Soulcatcher's Airy. Beastmaster's Ascension, to make my creatures really big. Wild Pair, because you'll see later on in the video, most of the creatures are 1/1s or 1/2s or 2/2s or 2/1s. So you'll almost always be able to find something. Okay, and then we'll move on to equipment. We have Skull Clamp, Sword of the Animus to get basic lands, Lightning Greaves to give my creatures haste, Sword of War and Peace, and Sword of Body and Mind. I'm trying to get all 5 swords, but the other ones are very, very expensive. And it's a lot of money for a college student. And then one of the biggest bombs in my deck, which is a bulk rare, is Biomass Mutation. So creatures you control become XX until end of turn. So you pay 10 mana, all your creatures become 10/10s. So I'm just kind of sitting there, swinging with a bunch of 1/1 birds. Nobody pays any attention, and right before damage, BAM! Well, not right before damage, but in response to them not blocking, you just make all of them huge, and then they die. Or they have to use a spell to get rid of a bunch of your 1/1 birds. And then the non-bird creatures we have are Progenitor Mimic, because I can make a copy of a bird and then put another copy of it every turn. Adaptive Automaton. Technically, he's a bird, but on the card, he's not a bird. So I put him in this pile. So he's pretty much a bird lord. He gives all birds +1/+1. And he's a bird in addition to his other types. Then we have Mirror Entity. Again, like Biomass Mutation, it does the same thing, where the birds become a lot bigger out of nowhere. Although this one, most of the time, they'll see coming, because if you play this card out, they're going to know that you're going to pump them. Then we have Sun Titan. It is a pre-release foil from, I don't know what language that is, but it says Sun Titan is a 6/6 for 6 with Vigilance, and whenever Sun Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, return a permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And once again, when we get to the birds, you're going to see almost every single one of them is 3 or less, and most of the enchantments and equipment that I have are 3 or less, so this guy is a house. So Pathbreaker Ibex is a new inclusion. I didn't actually know this card existed. But Pathbreaker Ibex, whenever Pathbreaker Ibex attacks, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So I have a couple decently sized birds, but if I don't have any birds that are bigger than a 3/3, they're still getting +3/+3 in trample every turn when he attacks. And then another bomb in my deck is Craterhoof Behemoth. So Craterhoof Behemoth is a 5/5 for 8 with haste. When Craterhoof Behemoth enters the battlefield, creatures your opponents control get trample and +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. So you have, 7 birds out and him. They all get +8/+8 in trample until end of turn, including him, and he has haste, so he just swings in. Okay, so now we're going to go through the birds, the meat and potatoes. So we have Judge's Familiar, counters an instant or sorcery unless they pay 1, sack him. Aven Mimeomancer makes things 3/1s with flying, as long as it has a feather counter on it. Skymark Rock, this guy is crazy good, especially in Commander, because he attacks and returns a creature with toughness 2 or less to its owner's hand. So that kills a lot of commanders. Oh, not kills, puts them back in their hand, they have to replay them. Then green birds, we have Birds of Paradise, my favorite bird, and Whippoorwill. So Whippoorwill is really weird, and it's a really old card. It's from the Dark. It's a 1/1 for 1. It doesn't have flying, oddly enough. You pay a green and tap it. Until end of turn, target creature may not regenerate, and damage done to target creature may not be prevented or redirected. If the creature goes to the graveyard, remove it from the game. So basically, you pay a green and tap it. Target creature can't regenerate this turn, and the damage cannot be prevented or redirected. And if it dies, instead of going to the graveyard, it gets exiled. So he's really, really good. And then on the bluebirds, we have Cloudfin Raptor. He's a bird mutant with Evolve. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if that creature has a greater power or toughness than this creature, put a +1/+1 counter on him. So he usually gets to be about a 4/5. He doesn't get huge, but it's pretty good. So Stormscape Familiar, is a 1/1 for 2 with flying. White and black spells you play cost 1 less. That's only here for the white spells, because some of the white spells I have in here cost a lot, and the deck's mostly white. Zephyr Falcon. Attacking does not cause Zephyr Falcon to tap, so it's a 1/1 for 2 with flying and vigilance. And then Stormcrow, the best bird. This is from Portal, and it has the reminder text for flying. A creature with flying can be intercepted only by other creatures with flying. It's a really expensive Stormcrow, but it's awesome. It even has the shield and the sword for power and toughness. Mindshrieker, everybody hates this card. So it's a 1/1 for 2 with flying, and you pay 2. Target player puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Mindtrigger gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is that card's converted mana cost. Then Ogrial, when he comes into play, you scry 3, and he's a 1/1 for 2. So, like I had mentioned before, most of them are 1/1s or 1/2s or 2/1s or 2/2s. Warden of Evos Isle. Creatures with flying cost 1 less to cast. Keeper of the Nine Gales. I can tap 2 untapped birds and it. Return target permanent to its owner's hand. Crookclaw Elder is one of the best birds in my deck because I can tap 2 untapped birds I control to draw a card, and that includes him. And then I can tap 2 untapped wizards I control to give target creature flying until end of turn. So there's quite a few wizards, and Derevi is a wizard. So we have Suntail Hawk, which is a 1/1 for 1 with flying, and his partner in crime, Aven Skirmisher, which is a 1/1 for 1 with flying. Then, just for the lulls, we have Squadron Hawk. So Squadron Hawk was really good in the standard deck Caw-Blade, because you could play one Squadron Hawk and get all the other ones. But in this deck, it's pretty much just a shuffle, which is okay, because I play this game for fun, man. Then we have Aven Squire, which is a 1/1 for 1 with Exalted, so whenever a creature attacks alone, it gets +1/+1. Courier Hawk, a 1/2 for 2 with Flying and Vigilance. A Dusk Rider Falcon, which is a 1/1 for 2 with Flying and Protection from Black. Sky Shroud Falcon, a 1/1 for 2 that has Vigilance. Lieutenant Kirtar, he's a 2/2 for 3 legendary bird soldier. You can pay a white and a colorless, sacrifice him, remove target attacking creature from the game. So he's a removal on a creature. Aven Mind Sensor, it's a 2/1 for 3 with Flash, which you can play it at any time, with flying. And if opponent would search a library, that player searches the top 4 cards of his or her library instead. Then we have Major Turo. He's a 2/3 for 4 bird soldier legend with flying. You pay 3 and 2 white, sacrifice him, remove all black creatures from the game. So I play in a meta with a lot of black players, so this card is definitely worth running. If you play in a meta that doesn't have a lot of black creatures, I would suggest taking him out and putting something else in. Airy Mystics. Creatures I control gain Shroud until end of turn. I won a game because they couldn't deal with him. Let's put it that way. Gustcloak Savior. Whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you may untap that creature and remove it from combat. So it makes my creatures unable to die. Wingmate Rock is a 3/4 for 5 with flying, and it has Raid. When Wingmate Rock enters the battlefield, if you attack with a creature this turn, put a 3/4 white bird creature token with flying into the battlefield. And then whenever Wingmate Rock attacks, you gain 1 life for each attacking creature. And then we have Aven Brigadier, which is a 3/5 for 6. Flying, other birds get +1/+1, and other soldiers get +1/+1. So there's quite a few bird soldiers in this deck, which gives them +2/+2, but he also gives just birds +1/+1, which makes him really nice. And then Windbrisk Raptor, the biggest bird. He is a 5/7 for 7 with flying, and attacking creatures you control have lifelink. So that was my Derevi Empyrial Tactician EDH deck. If you're going to build Derevi, if you want to have fun, build something like this. If you want to play competitively, don't build something like this. This is how I built Derevi, and this is how I enjoy playing Derevi. And the funniest part of all of this is, this deck wins a lot because people underestimate me. It doesn't win as much after I've played with the people a couple times, because then they realize that my deck is not so laid back. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed what you saw, give the video a like. It really helps me out. Share this video on any social media, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, anywhere that people will listen. And then don't forget to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at MTGDecks4Fun. And like me on Facebook. I do all kinds of stuff there. You get notifications of my videos on social media. You get spoilers for new sets. You get just random tweets of things that I thought were funny or relevant that have to do with MTG most of the time. Anyways, I'm sure you guys are bored to death by now. But I really appreciate it. Bye, guys.